What do we know? What do we know?
They will intersect at, they will always intersect.
They're always going to intersect, but what about their intersection?
90 degrees.
At 90 degrees. They intersect at 90 degrees. Okay, so we define it as two lines that intersect at a right angle. Okay? Alright. It says that we want to construct a line that is perpendicular to CD and passes through the point T. Okay, so there's a lot of steps here, and this is how your Carnegie book defines this construction. However, I'm going to give you an easier way. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is put your compass on T. Okay, you're going to create an arc, okay, with a radius of T in the middle. Okay, it does not matter how big or small you make it. Okay, once you make your arc, your semicircle, label your new points of intersection E and F. Okay, now you're going to go greater than halfway between your points of intersection and the middle, or what you think is the middle. Okay, so go greater than halfway and make arcs. So you're putting your endpoint on a point of intersection and you're making an arc. Now, same thing like constructing midpoint. When you flip it, okay, you don't adjust your compass at all. And you make another arc. And then draw your perpendicular line. Okay, so it's 3 steps. Make an arc to intersect your segment. Okay, then go from your points of intersection greater than halfway, flip your compass, same length, greater than halfway. So 3 steps. Okay, questions about constructing a perpendicular line? Okay, so far so good. Alright, parallel lines. Okay, what do we know about parallel lines? Okay, same slope. Okay, so it's 2 lines that intersect, that do not intersect. What else do we know about parallel lines? How do we distinguish the difference between parallel and skew? They lie on the same plane. Very good. And lie on the same plane. Okay, so 2 lines that do not intersect and they lie on the same plane. Alright, this is where it gets crazy. Bear with me. So, in order to construct a parallel line, you make 2 perpendicular constructions. So we're going to construct a perpendicular line going this way, and then once we have that perpendicular line, you'll construct another one going this way, and then they'll be parallel. Okay? So, first thing you do, it wants it to go through point C. So when I draw my initial arc, I need to make sure that I use a radius length of C to my segment. Okay, so I need to make sure my length is from C to my segment. Okay, so I'm going to draw my arc. make sure it goes through C. Okay, I have two new points of intersection. Okay, so this time we don't have a point on our line, so you just have to eyeball it and go greater than halfway. Okay, so putting your point on a point of intersection, go greater than halfway, make an arc, then flip it, greater than halfway, and make an arc. Draw your perpendicular line. Okay, so that's your first perpendicular line. Now, once you've done that line, rotate your paper so that you're looking at it this way. Okay. Now we need to draw another perpendicular line that goes through point C so that it's parallel to AB. Okay? So this time when you draw your initial arc, okay, C is going to be your center. Okay, so draw a semicircle with C as your center. Okay, so it gets a little crazy because now you have all these arcs, so make sure you pay attention to which ones you're focusing on. Okay, so now I have two new endpoints and points of intersection. Okay, I'm just going to label them G and H. You can label them anything you want. Okay, so now I'm looking at GH. So I'm going to start on H. I'm going to go past C, construct an arc, and then flip it and go on from G. So I'm going to go greater than halfway, make an arc. Whoa. Okay, and then I'm going to go from G that same distance. And then I get to draw my parallel line. Okay, how we label lines parallel is with our arrow on the line. That says that those two lines are parallel. Okay, so a lot of steps, but essentially as soon as you know how to do the perpendicular step, you can do parallel because it's just perpendicular twice. Okay, you will, and I'm promising you now, see this exact problem on your test. So you've got to know how to construct parallel lines. Okay, the reason that I don't mind telling you that is as long as you memorize how to do it, essentially it's the same exact thing on the test. Okay, I want you to learn how to do it. So I'm telling you to learn it. Okay, questions on constructing the perpendicular or parallel line? Okay, I wanted to make sure that band people got to see that because that would probably have been real confusing to try to watch. Okay, turn the page. Perpendicular bisector. Okay, this we have already done. Okay, we did this, I believe, on 1.3, sometime last week before your test. Okay, a perpendicular bisector goes through what? The midpoint. Okay, so it goes through the midpoint. And what happens at the midpoint? It forms what? A right angle. So intersects at right angles. Okay, so the definition that we've already written before, but we'll write it one more time. A line line segment or ray that intersects the midpoint of a line segment at a 90-degree angle. Alright, so this should not be new to you, so I want you to go ahead and construct the midpoint and the perpendicular bisector of AB. Okay, so you're putting your compass on A or B, whatever one you want to start with, going greater than halfway, making your arc, flipping your compass, go from point A, make your arc, and where the two intersect is your perpendicular bisector. Okay, what do we know about AC and CB? What do we know about this length, AC and CB?
They're congruent.
They're congruent. Why are they congruent? Because it's a bisector. It goes through the midpoint. Okay. It says mark 3 points on the perpendicular bisector ST. So we didn't label it ST, but that's okay. Just mark 3 points along your bisector. Doesn't matter where, just any 3 points. Okay? With your compass, see what you notice about their distance from point A and point B. So measure those distances from point A to the point on our bisector and then from point B. What do you notice? They're congruent, right? So this one would be congruent to this one and so forth. So if I had a diagram like this, okay, and I know it formed at a right angle, these two pieces were congruent, so I know this has to be the midpoint, and then I had 2x plus 10 and 6x minus 3, okay, and I told you to solve for x. What would you have to do? Set them equal to each other, okay? So they may only give you the fact that it's they might say, analyze this picture, ST is a perpendicular bisector through the midpoint C, okay? And none of these would have congruent markings. You would have to know through your vocabulary that it's going through the midpoint and that it's a perpendicular bisector, so all of the points on the bisector are equidistant from the angles. So that's something that you would have to know based off the vocabulary. Okay, and then you would set them equal to each other and solve. Okay, so it's not just so much knowing how to construct them, you have to know the properties and why they're unique. Question on perpendicular bisector. Okay. Angle bisector is a review, so I just want you to construct an angle bisector on angle D. Construct the angle bisector on D. Label your intersection B. And draw your ray. Okay, what do you know about these two angles? What do you know about these two angles? They're congruent because they're being bisected. Okay? Now it says, pick any point on DB in the triangle and draw two perpendicular segments to sides DE and DF. Okay, so let's pick a point. I'm going to pick this point. You don't have to pick this one. Just draw a point anywhere on your bisector and label it, oh, we can label it something else. F.
F is also T.
Oh. G. Is that one taken? No. Okay. G.
Wait.
Okay. Okay, and then it says draw two perpendicular segments. So you do not have to construct it with the compass, just eyeball it and draw what you would think would be the perpendicular segments. So, perpendicular. Okay? And then it says measure the length of these segments that you just drew with your compass. So what do you notice?
Pretty much the same.
Okay, give or take, they should be pretty accurate, but because we just drew rather than constructed, it might be off a little bit. But the idea is that they're what? They're congruent, okay? So any perpendicular line that you drop to the opposite side should be congruent. Okay, so definitions of angle bisector. Splits angle into two equal parts. Okay, and perpendicular lines drawn from the bisector are congruent. Okay, so those are our properties. And then our definition is just going to be a ray that divides an angle into two congruent angles. I use some symbols there to make it shorter. So a ray that divides an angle into two congruent angles. Questions on that one? Okay. Last two constructions. Okay. Median. Okay, the first thing it wants you to do is construct the midpoint of IK. So construct the midpoint of IK. These last two are easy. And label it M. Okay, what do we know about IM and MK?
They're congruent.
They're congruent. Okay, then it says using a straight edge, draw a line connecting D and M. This is what we call a median. So if I were to tell you to define a median, what do you think the definition is? What do we call DM? A line, a segment, what? Okay, a segment that connects what do we call M? So a segment that connects a midpoint to the what? Okay, so not just any vertex, but which one? Okay, what is D in reference to M? Opposite vertex. Very good. So a line segment joining a vertex to the midpoint of the opposing side. So a line segment joining a vertex to the midpoint of the opposing side. Okay, so you may have a question on a test that these wouldn't be marked congruent. They would say M is a DM represents a median. Okay, and then it could have 2x plus 5, x plus 2, and then x squared minus 8. I don't know if those numbers work out. I just made them up. Okay, so how would I solve for x?
Set 2x plus 5 and x plus 2 equal to each other.
Very good. So you would set 2x plus 5 and x plus 2 equal to each other and solve for x. Then, if it asked you to solve for dm, you would take that value of x and substitute in for x squared minus 8. Okay? Like I said, I have no idea if those numbers work. Most likely they don't. Okay, so your properties of your median, there's nothing really unique. It just connects midpoint to opposite vertex. So pretty much the same thing as the definition. Okay, our last construction. The easiest one yet, I think. Okay, we're going to construct an altitude. Okay, the first step is to extend your compass the length of KD. And make an arc. Your arc's going to be really big. Mine should be the darker one. I messed up. Okay, then go from vertex I, change your compass to reach ID, and then draw another arc. Okay, and then where they intersect, you are dropping a perpendicular line. Okay, the line does not go all the way through, however. It should just stop at the base of your triangle. Okay, so our properties of our altitude is it forms a right angle. It starts at a vertex. Okay, and what is another word for altitude? Height. It represents the height of our triangle. Okay, our definition is a line segment through a vertex and perpendicular to the opposite side. Okay, real quick before your band people go, I want you to do one more parallel construction. Okay, so just take a blank piece of paper or the back of something, and everybody else do this as well. Okay, draw a line segment and then a point not on the line. Once you finish this construction, you may show me and then leave. Okay. So start with creating a radius from your point of your point off the line to your segment. And draw an arc. Label those 2 points of intersection. Okay, then go greater than halfway. Greater than halfway. Draw your perpendicular line. Then do the same exact thing, but now you're using C as your center. So C is our center, make an arc. Label your points of intersection. Extend greater than halfway. Flip it. Greater than halfway. And draw your second perpendicular line. So you should have 6 arcs in total on your paper when you construct parallel lines. Okay, band, once you've got it, you are free to go. Let me see it and you are free to go. Do you understand it?
Yeah.
Awesome. Do you understand? Awesome. Got it? The rest of us, we're not done. Keep practicing. Perfect. Awesome. The homework is on top of the podium. Make sure you guys grab it on your way out if you don't have it already. Awesome. Does it make sense? Help the person next to you if they don't know what they're doing. Got it? Awesome. Make sure you grab the homework on top of the podium before you guys leave. Make sure you are comfortable doing this before you leave. You have a skills check next class. Skills check next class. Bye. Good luck.
Have a nice weekend.
You too.
Okay.
Awesome. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Bye. Does it make sense? There's a lot of lines. Make sense though? Skills check next class. Make sure you do the homework. Keys online. Oh, we're gonna keep going. Just waiting for them to go. Hi. Alright. So now we're looking at the application piece of all the terms and stuff that we just learned. Okay? So number 1 is review from last time, but we'll do it real quick. Point A is on 4-3. B is at 1, -2. C is at -2, 3. Okay, draw your triangle. No! It's okay. Well, it's not okay, but it'll be okay. Thanks. Okay, so y'all are gonna have to look at y'all's graph because now I don't have lines. Okay, so we want to write the equation of a perpendicular bisector of AB. Okay, how are we gonna figure out the perpendicular bisector of AB? Perpendicular bisector, what's our definition of that? First one we did. Or I think, no, I lied. It's the third one we did. Yes.
A line segment or ray that intersects the midpoint of a line segment.
Okay. So perpendicular bisector is going to have to go through the midpoint, and so we need to find our midpoint of AB. So I have 4 plus 1 over 2, 3 plus a -2 over 2. 4 plus 1 over 2 is what? 2.5. 3 plus a -2 over 2 is what? Very good, 0.5. Okay, so at 2.5, 0.5, that's my midpoint. Okay, so I know my perpendicular bisector needs to go through that point. Okay, what else do we have to figure out? First, we need to figure out the equation of line AB. So we don't need the whole equation. What do we need? The slope. Okay, so what is the slope of AB? y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1.
Is 1 2/3.
Okay, so if I take 1 minus 4 over, oh, I lied, not 1 minus 4. -2 minus 3 over 1 minus 4. What do I get? -2 minus 3 is what? -5. 1 minus 4. -3. That simplifies to what?
1 2/3.
5/3. Always leave it as an improper fraction. Don't change it to mixed numbers. Okay, so 5/3 is our slope. So what is our slope of our perpendicular bisector? -3/5. Okay, so now I have the slope and the midpoint. And how am I going to write the equation of the line? I I have slope and midpoint. How can I write the equation of my line? This is from the last test. Yes.
Would you write it as y equals negative 3/5 x plus 2 and 1/5?
Did you just give me the answer?
Possibly.
Okay, how do I figure out the equation though?
Okay, figure out a solid point that's there.
Which is our midpoint.
Or you pick some one. Oh, how to figure out the slope? Oh, right, figuring out
No, how do I figure out my equation of my perpendicular bisector? I have my slope.
Well, first of all, you take y equals negative 3/5 x, and then, I actually extended the bisector a little bit, so I actually use the difference of points.
Okay, what'd you do?
You use point slope formula with the midpoint.
Okay, you can use point slope or y equals mx plus b. Okay, on a test, it's most of the time going to be in y equals mx plus b, so get comfortable using that. Okay, so y is 0.5, you use your midpoint. M is negative 3/5. Oops. X is 2.5 plus b. What is negative 3/5 times 2.5? What is negative 3/5 times 2.5? Negative 1.5 plus b. Okay, so add 1.5 to both sides. What do you get for b? 2. Okay, so what is the equation of my perpendicular bisector? Very good. Y equals negative 3/5 x plus 2. Okay, so that was from last time. That should have been a review. You take the midpoint and your opposite reciprocal slope and plug it into y equals mx plus b. Okay. Number 2, find the coordinates of E, the midpoint of BC. Where is E? 5, negative 1? Okay, write the equation of the perpendicular bisector of BC. So what point does it need to go through? The perpendicular bisector of BC. Has to go through point E because E is the what? The midpoint. Okay, so the bisector has to go through E and it needs to bisect BC. So what do we need to figure out? The slope of what? BC. What is your slope of BC? Up 2 over 3. Up 2 over 3. What's my slope? 2/3. So what would my perpendicular slope be? Negative 3/2. Okay, so now how would I figure out the equation of my line? Very good. So you're going to insert your midpoint and your slope into your slope-intercept formula. Okay, so you have y equals mx plus b. Y equals negative 1. M equals a negative 3/2 plus b. What is negative 3/2 times 5? Negative 7.5 plus b. Add 7.5 to both sides, and what do you get for B?
6.5.
Very good. So what is my equation of my perpendicular bisector?
Now equals -3 halves x plus 6.5.
Very good. -3/2 x plus 6.5. Okay, number 4 says find the length of the median EA. How could we find the length of this median? Distance formula or Pythagorean theorem. You can draw a right triangle. Okay, so whatever method you prefer, find the distance of EA. Okay, radical 37 is about what? 6.08. So you could have radical 37 or about 6.08. Okay, do the same thing, but this time you're finding the length of median DC. So the same thing, but the length of DC. Okay, what did you guys get for DC?
7.21.
What did you say?
7.21.
7.21. Okay, so that would be your about answer. So it's about 7.21. Is this radical simplified? No. So if I told you to give me an exact answer, how could we simplify this radical? Which perfect square goes evenly into 52? First off, does anybody remember what a perfect square is? What's perfect square?
It's like a number that can be squared into like an even number.
There you go. So it's a number times itself. So like 4 is a perfect square. 9 is a perfect square. 36 is a perfect square. 16 is a perfect square. 25, etc. It goes all the way. Okay. So what perfect square goes evenly into 52? I heard somebody say it, but 4. 4 times what? 13. Okay, so what is the square root of 4? 2, and then you would have radical 13, because radical 13 can't be broken down anymore. So if I ask for the exact value, okay, you would need to break it down like this. Okay, radical 37 cannot be simplified anymore. There is no perfect square that goes evenly into 37. Okay? Questions on this page? Okay, turn it over, last page. Okay, JN is the perpendicular bisector of MK. Find MK if A equals 6y minus 5 and B equals 3y plus 10. What is N in this picture? Yep. JN is the perpendicular bisector of MK. N is the midpoint of MK. So what does that tell you about A and B? They're equal to each other. So how do we solve for Y? Set them equal to each other. So 6y minus 5 equals 3y plus 10. Okay, I'm going to add 5 to both sides. 6y equals 3y plus 15. Subtract 3y. 3y equals 15. What does y equal? Very good. Okay. It doesn't ask for y though. It asks for mk. So plug in and solve for mk. What did you get, Justin?
50.
50. Very good. So mk is equal to 50 units. Okay, see how you have to know perpendicular bisector goes to the midpoint. That way you know A and B are congruent. Okay, 7. Find AB if BD is a median of triangle ABC. BD is the median of ABC. So what does that tell us about our segments on our triangle? First, what is a median? What does a median do? Very good. So it's a line segment connecting the midpoint to the vertex of the opposite side. So what do we know is congruent here? AD and DC. So how can we solve for X? Set them equal to each other. 3x squared plus 6x minus 30 equals x squared plus 4x plus 10. Okay, I'm going to set my equation equal to 0 so that I can solve it. So subtract x squared from both sides. You get 2x squared. Subtract 4x from both sides. You get 2x. Subtract 10 from both sides. You get negative 40. What's the first step in solving quadratics? What do you do first before you start factoring? Take out the greatest common factor. So what is our greatest common factor? 2. So if I take out a 2, I'm left with what in my parentheses? X squared plus x minus what?
20.
Minus 20. Okay, now I'm factoring x squared plus x minus 20. So I'm looking at my factors of negative 20 that are going to add and give me a 1, because there's a 1 in front of my x. Okay, so what times what is going to give me negative 20? 4. Okay, notice that when you add 5 and negative 4, it gives you a 1. So those are indeed the factors. So you have 2x plus 5, x minus 4. Okay, now how do I get what x equals? What do I do with my factors? Set them equal to 0. So x plus 5 equals 0. X minus 4 equals 0. So x equals what?
Equals -5.
Negative 5, or x equals what? 4. Okay, so these are my two options. Okay? However, you always want to verify your negative. So make sure that if you were to substitute in a negative, that you would not get a negative distance. In the event that you did, you would just cross out your negative value and say that it doesn't work. Okay? So the only answer would be x equals 4. However, you don't get in the habit of just crossing off your negative every time, because there are times where it does indeed work. So let's verify. Negative 5, if I were to plug it in for x, negative 5 times 2 is what? Negative 10 plus 6 is negative 4. So I would get a negative distance, so I know that my negative 5 is not going to work for this problem. Okay, so my answer is x equals 4. Okay, well, it says to find AB, so what is the length of AB?
14.
Very good. Okay, find BC if AD is an altitude of triangle ABC. Okay, what do we know about an altitude?
Line segment through a vertex and perpendicular to the opposite side.
Very good. So it's a line segment through the vertex and perpendicular to the opposite side. So what do we know about this figure? It's perpendicular, which means what? Okay, perpendicular lines do have opposite slopes. So what else does it tell us about this figure in particular? It makes two right triangles, so this is a what degree? 90-degree angle. Okay, so how could we solve for x? Set them equal. So x squared plus 6x plus 18 equals 90. Okay, and then you have to solve the quadratic. What's the first step in solving this quadratic? Set it to equal 0. Was that thunder? Or is that somebody keeping the desk? I'm not sure. Okay. Okay, so I have x squared plus 6x plus minus what? Very good. Minus 72. Oh, yeah, it was thunder, y'all. Equals 0. That was a rain. Okay. What are the factors of negative 72 that are going to add and give you 6? Six and 12, which one's negative? 6. Very good. So 12 and a negative 6 are going to give you negative 72, but when you add, they'll give you that positive 6. So I'm going to have x minus 12, or sorry, x plus 12, x minus 6 equals 0. Okay, how am I going to get my x values? Set them equal to 0, so x plus 12 equals 0, x minus 6 equals 0. Okay, so x equals what?
Negative 12 and 6.
Negative 12 or x equals 6. Okay, it says to find the length of BC. Okay, let's test out one of my answers first. If I put negative 12 in for this length here, 7 times negative 12 is what? Plus 2. So can we have a negative 12? No. Okay, so let's plug in 6. 7 times 6 is what? 42 plus 2. Okay, 5 times 6 is plus 12. So the length of BC is what? 86. Okay, so do you see how important vocabulary is? you wouldn't know what to set equal to each other, and I guarantee you I will get people that set 7x plus 2 equal to 5x plus 12 because they don't know what an altitude does. Okay, so you've got to know your vocab. Okay, just like over here, it's more obvious, but if nothing was drawn and it just said BD is a median, okay, and this line wasn't drawn, you would have to know that those two are congruent. Okay. Any questions on what we did today? Okay. Yes.
I still don't understand the parallel lines, the construct parallel lines.
Okay, we can do it again. Anything other than the parallel lines? Okay, I skipped the warm-up just for the sake of all those band kids leaving. But basically, all I wanted you to do was verify that these lines are perpendicular and these lines are parallel. How would you verify? Yes.
For the perpendicular, you would make sure that the slopes are opposite reciprocals, and for the parallel, you would make sure the slopes are the same.
Very good. Okay, so on your own time, if you want to go through that, you may. The answers are online. Okay, but I just wanted you to verify and state those reasons. So if it is perpendicular, it's because they have opposite reciprocal slopes. If it is parallel, it's because they have the same slope. Okay. I'm going to do one more construction for a parallel line. So, there's note cards inside the bucket if you want to use a note card or find another little section of white on your note. Okay, draw a segment and a point not on the line. So draw a segment and a point not on the line to start. Okay, let's go through it step by step. What is my first step? Find the distance from C to the line so that you can create that arc. Okay, so find the distance from C to my line. Okay, and then I'm going to draw my semicircle. Okay, then what do I do? What's next? Very good. Label your intersection, so draw new points so you don't get confused. And you're going, let's go, I always just do E and F. Okay, so now what do I do? Okay, bisect that segment. Okay, so you're going to go greater than halfway. Greater than halfway. Make your arcs. Turn it around. Make sure you're going from your new points, not your old ones. Okay, draw your perpendicular line. Okay, then what? Okay, so you do the same thing again, but this time, where's your center? C. So now I'm creating an arc using the center of C. Okay, after I have my new arc, what do I do? Label your points. Okay, now I'm focusing just on this. Okay, so what do I do? What do I do after I created that semicircle? Very good. Go over halfway from your point of intersection. Draw your semicircle, your arc. Then flip your compass and go from your other point of intersection. And draw your parallel line. Okay, and then make sure that you don't forget to put your little arrowheads that show that these lines are parallel. Questions? Make more sense? Okay. Yes. Yeah. Anything else? Okay, so essentially as long as you need to know what's connecting to what. Okay. I'm gonna hand out the homework and then I'm gonna pass back any graded papers I have as well as your tests. Okay? So